I welcome everyone to today's session. Officially, we are starting our data science journey today, and I'm glad to have you on board. Um, Let me admit Jude. I'm very glad to have you on board, and I'm more than happy you made it to this far. Very soon, I would move on to my listing, and it will stop mirroring because I'm sharing my entire screen. That is why it is mirroring like that. So, Jude, you welcome. How are you doing? We've missed you. Today I'm going to use both Jupyter Notebook and then Google Colab for the sake of everybody. So whichever one you want to use, I will show you how to get started. So let's get started with Google Colab. So with Google Colab, all of us now I believe we know how to launch um, our notebook. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see whatever I do. So with Google Colab, let me get let me get this guy here. So with Google Colab, if you want to if you want to upload the dataset, the dataset I told you to download. All you do is when you come, you click on the folder here, which the folder icon here, which is if you click on files, Josephine, Josephine, talk to me. What's the issue?
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, please.
Sure, it's fine. So you click on the little folder icon here, and then it will tell you the one, I mean the files. So when it opens like this, let me maybe zoom out a little bit so that you can see clearly. So you can refresh and you will see sample data and blah blah here. But we're not going to use the sample data. So what you're going to do is you go to your files and you look for the particular location of your data set. So the data set you actually go into, the data set you are dealing with, I mean the one you downloaded. So it is called salaries.csv, and you just drag it into here. You will see that there is a little box down there. So when you drop it into this area, just stop or release. It will give you a warning sign that because it is a cloud version, it is going to. So it will load. So when you see it here like this, it means it has been loaded. Because Google Colab is not on your machine locally, but it is a cloud system. Um, you have to drop the data set in so that it can, um, you know, you can have it there and you can work with it. And with time, if you don't use it for, if you leave your Google Colab open for some number of time, it is going to go off. You have to reconnect and drag it into it again. So once you are done with this, or once you successfully drag the thing in here, and the you can see the file name in here or the dataset name in here, salaries.csv, you are good to go. Now, if you are using, that is it for, that is the first stage for the Google Colab users. But if you are using um, Jupyter Notebook, mostly that one is different from Google Colab because Google Colab is not locally on your PC. It is a cloud solution, meaning it is Google's PC somewhere, and Jupyter Notebook is actually locally, I mean, on your PC. What it means is that with Jupyter Notebook, when you open, you have your files here, and these files, mostly when you download something from the internet, it mostly goes into your download folder. So you look for the download or wherever you downloaded the file into. But mine, I can find it in homeschool. So I open it and I go to learning materials, and I'm sorry, I go back to, so I go to homeschool, then I go to, yeah, lecture slides, or is it learning materials rather? No, actually lecture slides, and I go to datasets. That is the location of my, and you can see I have the dataset.csv here. Now, all I have to do is to click on new and click on Python 3. So once I click on that, it would open a new notebook for me. With Jupyter Notebook, we will soon see how we actually import the data sets and those things. But now we've seen the Jupyter Notebook is loading very soon. And then you realize we navigated to where our data set is and we opened it there. And let's wait for it to load and we are good to go. So it has loaded. So we have it here and we also have our Google Colab here. Now, if you have been able to get to this session, um, clap for yourself. You've really done well. So you've done the first stage of you've passed the first stage of test. I mean, how to open a Jupyter notebook or maybe drag or maybe upload your data set into your Google Colab, which is very fine. Now, I would advise you always rename your file or your folder, your file name, into something that would always maybe you would always remember. So, for example, maybe I can make this intro to maybe data science, for example, so that I would know that okay, this notebook is actually introduction to data science. The same way, if you are in Jupyter Notebook too, you can just click on the file name and then you name. So intro intro to data science. Then I click rename and I'm done. So once you have this, you've passed the first stage. The second stage is now you have the data set here. How do you actually get it into the codes and then you work with it? Or how do you even see the kind of data set you have? But before we go into there, you would see that the data set actually ends with CSV. It is salaries.csv. And you remember last week we talked about data sets, and I told you for structured data sets we have things like CSV, which means comma separated value, and it is a format for what structured data sets. So meaning this particular data set we're going to work with is actually going to have rows and columns. Josephine, any question?
Yes. Muta, could you
Yeah.
quickly go through how we can get the data uploaded onto our Google Colab? I had a connection distraction at the time you were mentioning it.
Okay. So
So a
it
quick one on the Google Colab. Yeah.
Okay, that's very fine. So it is very simple. When you open your Google Colab, you click on the little folder icon here. When you hover on it, you see files. So when you click on it, now I have my data set here. Let me delete it and probably let me delete it and reload it. So I will delete the file so that I don't have it. So you can see I don't have anything here. So what you do is you actually open your computer, I mean where you downloaded the data set to. So mine, it is in this folder of mine. So you click on the data set, the file, you drag it into this area, and then you release it and it will load. When you do it for the first time, it will bring a pop-up warning. Just click OK. And then it will load. And once it finishes loading, you will see the data set here. And boom, you've been able to upload the data set into Google Colab. Josephine, is that cool?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay, so try it and let's see. Is there any question from here, guys? I can see Makafu and Makafui. Makafui, you welcome. Vesta, yeah, I think Makafui is the new one in. How was your holidays? Okay, Josephine, you can talk.
Pause a mistake, please.
Okay, so Makafu, you welcome. I hope everything is well.
Yeah, thank you. Everything is fine.
That's
Right.
all good.
Please, a quick information. Eben informed me that he has problem with network, but and when it's cool with it, he will join.
Oh, that's very fine. We are recording the class, so you can always have it even if you don't join.
Thank
You're welcome. So let me zoom in to these two so that You can see it clearly. So guys, now you have it. I'm very sure all of us have been able to do, either you are using Google Colab or you are using Jupyter Notebook. You've been able to. I am going to use Google Colab. Yeah, I said Jupyter Notebook initially, but I'm going to use Google Colab. So now you have a data set. Now, how do we even see the kind of data we have? What data do we have? How do we see that? So the first thing is to, for Python, the last time I told you Python is organized in library basis. For example, when we say libraries, see it's like a big, Python is like a big library house. And then we have sections, like every wall or every shelf has a particular kind of books it actually has, or it actually keeps. So you see about love story, about history, about business, about accounting, about technology, about computers. So every shelf. So the same way in Python, if and I told you some of the packages for data science or some of the packages for data pre-processing is pandas. So you have to, in Python, anything data science or anything data, you use pandas. So before you can use any tool or any library, library is like a tool, or let me say a toolbox which has a lot of tools in there, and every toolbox has specific tools. So maybe this is for repairing a car tire, this is for repairing a windscreen, this is for repairing the engine, something like that. The same way, so all the libraries have their specific use cases, and with time, you're going to know a lot of them. So the first thing on our list is pandas. So when in Python, if you start any this thing with hash like this, it is called commenting. Commenting is a way to like add some, let me say notifications or some kind of notices to your data or to your codes, so that if yourself or somebody is reading the codes, he or she will know what every line of code is doing or what that specific section is actually doing. So it is not read. The computer doesn't recognize this as a code. It is actually there to help you. So I'm just putting it here so that everybody will see that, okay, under here or under this session, I'm actually going to import libraries. And back to what I was saying, we want to use pandas library because it is what we're going to use for the data, to see the data, to play with the data and all those things. Now, the libraries are there. If you want to use them, you have to import them. Just like the toolboxes are in the warehouse or are in the garage. If you want to use them, you have to enter the garage and pick a particular toolbox and you bring it. So the same way you have to. Let me admit Martin. We are good to go. So Martin is in. Martin, you're welcome. So we are going to import, the libraries we will need. So the first library is actually pandas. And we import libraries in Python simply by using import, then the library name. So we are going to import pandas. So we can just say import pandas, but we give it an alias. Anytime you want to use any tool from the pandas toolbox, you have to call pandas. So we want to give it an alias. For example, maybe you can call me, my full name is Mutawakil Mikael Newman. But if you want to call me all the time, you cannot be doing Mutawakil Mikael Newman. Hey, Mutawakil Mikael Newman. It is very long for you, very cumbersome. So you just find an alias or AKA for me. So you ask me, can you give me a short form of your name? I'll be like, oh, you can call me Muta. So instead of calling me my entire name, you shorten it or you would use something to call me so that I would understand what, or I would get to. I mean, just like calling my new name or my full name. So we import pandas and we give it an alias as PD. You can give it any alias you want, but the most common one in data science, the one most data scientists have been using, is PD. We mostly do import pandas as PD. So when you import pandas as PD, what it means is that you are actually calling or going to the Python warehouse or the garage to go and pick the pandas toolbox. Mind you, pandas toolbox has a lot of tools in there to help us manipulate our data sets or our data we have. Everything about the data we need pandas to do. So once you write this, and you can see autocomplete in the Jupyter notebook, it is a new feature um, which is in this thing. We don't want the rest, but let's just do run. So when we run, if you don't see anything, if you don't see any output, if you don't see any red notification, it means that everything is all right and we are good to go. So if it is in Jupyter Notebook too, the same thing you can also do, maybe import libraries. Coming, let me admit there, and we are good to go. So in the same way, if it is in Jupyter, let me spell library as well. If it is in Jupyter Notebook, you do the same thing. Import pandas as PD, and you can run using Control Enter or Shift Enter, any of them. Control Enter to run the cell. If you don't see anything and you see the one little one, this thing here, it means that it has run. For Jupyter Notebook, you will see some time. You will see 1 second. So telling you it took 1 second, you see a tick, like tick sign. Correct, meaning everything is all right. So the next thing is we have imported our pandas. We've gone to the warehouse to pick our pandas toolbox. Now let's open it and use the tools we want. So we want to see our data set. How does it look like? So the first thing is we should be able to read the data set or load the data set into our code. Right now, it is just here into Google Colab, but not in our code. We want to use um, Python with the help of its pandas library to actually load the dataset. In other words, to load it into Python so that we can always see it and manipulate or pre-process it or do whatever we want to do with it. So let's load the dataset. So to load the dataset, you can see it has even given a highlight of it. That is why I like Colab. It has this autocomplete listing. So we actually want to load the data set and save it in a variable. You can call it data. For example, we want to save it in a variable called data. So data is equal to, now remember we imported pandas as PD. So anytime you want to use a tool from pandas, you have to call the toolbox name before. That is PD, then you bring dot. In there, we are saying that go into the pandas toolbox. In there is a tool called read underscore C CSV. And we are using read underscore CSV because, mind you, the data set ends with what CSV dot CSV, meaning that it is a CSV file. So in Python, every file format has what it takes to um, run them. So if it was a PDF, maybe you can do read underscore PDF, or if it was an Excel file, you say read underscore Excel. If it was any other file, it would have been different. But this one, it is a CSV file, and we got to know that because the file ends or the dataset name ends with .csv. So it shows you that it is a CSV file. So you do pd.read underscore CSV and you bring quote. Mind you, it is a function, so you open and close parentheses. So when you open and close parentheses, you can bring either double quotes or single quotes like this. Now, when you bring either double quotes or single quotes, it works the same way. Now, what you're going to type in here is a data set name. The data set name is what is here. Our data set is called salaries, and make sure you spell it very, very well. If you even leave one this thing, it is not going to work. Salaries.csv. Salaries.csv. Mind you, it is case sensitive. It is all small letters, right? All lowercase. If you go and do it uppercase, it is not going to work. Type it as it is, or you can copy it so that you don't have issues. So salaries.csv. So by this way, we are actually going to load our data set in. Now our data set is in the variable called data. So if you check, for example, the data type for the variable called data and you run, you will see that it says that, let's wait for it to load. It says that it is actually pandas.core.frame.dataframe. It is a data frame. Now, when we say data frame in Python, data frame is simply a data set which has rows and columns, like how we saw, like an Excel sheet. It's called data frame in Python. Simple as that. Now, let's see. Now we have a data set. How does it look like? So let's look at, we want to see how does the data look like. We want to see um, we want to see or have a look at the data set. If you want to see the data set, you can just type the variable in which the data was saved. For example, you just type data. When you type data and you run, you would see, let me zoom out. Let me zoom out a little bit and you will see. So sorry, my lights just went off. So if I'm going black, um, sorry about that. My light is just off. It's raining here, and Ghana. So let me on my um, torchlight. Maybe it's going to help. Yeah. So let's use it for now. Alice, let's manage. Please pardon me. It's not my fault. We're in Ghana, but I'm going to do my best to not cut the class. So let me zoom out so that you see the entire data set. So this is the entire data set. It is it has some of the columns, and you can see. So we have columns like, for example, work here, experience level, and those things. And we have rows, and the rows are numbered 0, 1, 2, going up to 7,973. So something like that. Now, let me zoom in again. Let me zoom in so that you can see clearly. Um, or let me so that we can see clearly here in this way. Now, if you don't want to see, you see this one, it shows the entire data set. Because it is very long, you will see some dot here telling you that some of them are suppressed. We are not showing the entire this thing because of the screen size and those things. So if you want to see the first few, now maybe you don't want to see all of them like this. You want to see the first few rows, for example. You want to see the first few rows. Josephine, Josephine, any question? Josephine, can you see my screen? Is there any question? Guys, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Muta,
Yeah,
Muta, I am speaking. I don't know if you can hear me.
yeah, I can hear you now.
Why is everybody quiet?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm going to log on. Okay, I'm going to go off and come on again and see if I can see your screen. I cannot see it. The network.
Okay, that's very fine. So let's go back to it. Josephine, can you see now?
Okay. Oh, I still cannot see your screen.
Guys, can
I
you
guess
all see my screen?
Yes.
Wow.
Rasha, today your own is good, oh. Okay, let me go and come back.
Today I'm lucky, oh, my dear.
Yeah, and Josephine, let's wait for you because this is very technical. I don't want you to. I don't want her to lose it. Hey, Jabal, how are you? Sally, Today, I won't say how.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
That's cool. Alhamdulillah. Josephine, can you see my screen now?
No, I cannot see the screen.
Well, maybe let me.
I can also see the screen. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to share it again so that maybe all of us can see. So I'm sharing it again and I hope we can all see now because this is very technical.
Hey, Jabri, you're looking fine. Oh.
Charlie, Hazel, share. Say what? Are you ready?
Are you a Legon?
Oh
Oh,
no 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 no! I'm not at Legon. I'm at Amstead
Amostet.
campus.
Yes,
So
library.
yeah, you've been there.
okay. The background looks
I've
like
been there before, man.
Oh, I
I
see.
hope all of you can see my screen now.
yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, it's
I
now
can
obvious.
see it now.
Okay,
Oh, you
that's
are lucky
awesome.
then.
So, so I was talking about how do you see the data set you are working with. So when we saved it in a variable called data. So when we just call it, let me zoom in a bit so that we can see it clearly. I'm zooming in. Yeah. I hope you guys can see now. It's quite bigger so that you can see very well. So we saved it. We're saying that go into the pandas toolbox and pick the tool called read underscore CSV. And this will help you to read any CSV data or CSV file, which is a data set in this case in Python. So how did we get to know we will use read underscore CSV or we use the read underscore CSV um, method? It is because the data set itself ends with what? .csv, telling us that it is a CSV file. So if it wasn't a CSV file, we would have used a different thing. So we are reading the data set by this. So and then we are saving it in a variable called data. Now when you save it, when you just type the data, the variable name, you can see what is in it. But maybe you don't want to see the entire thing. You want to see maybe the first 5 rows, the first 10 rows, or the first few rows of the data set. Now let's see how we can. Let me actually bring arrange my thing very well so that um, I don't mess up. Now ECG's light is out, so hope you guys can see me. Yeah, so now maybe we don't want to see the entire data set because it is too big and you will not see clearly also. You would want to see the few first rows or let's say few first observations, maybe the first 5, the first 10, the first 20, the first 2, the first 1. Something like that. Then let's say we want to see the first few um, observations. And I'm very sure now all of us know what observations are. Observations are the rows of the data set. Now to do that, you call a variable in which you save the data, which in our case it is called data. Then you do dot head. So your head is here. If you are coming, we first see your head. So head to toe. So you say data dot head and you end with what parenthesis because it is a method. Now you run it and you will see that you can see the first 5 rows. And I told you Python is a zero index programming language, meaning that um, it starts counting from zero. So you see the first five, we have zero, one, two, three, up to four. But you can see there are 5 observations. If you don't specify any number in between the parentheses, it gives the default number is 5. But you can specify, for example, you want to see the first two, and when by providing the number 2, you see the first two. If you provide 20, you will see the first 20. So if you don't want to, let's say if your preference is other anything other than 5, the default one, then you can provide the number in there. Otherwise, you can just um, leave it as default, and the default number is 5. So you will see 5 rows. And you can see we have 5 rows and we have a lot of columns. Some of the columns are this: work year, we have experience level, we have employment type, job title, salary currency, salary USD, we have employee residence, remote ratio, we have a lot of. So company location. Now, the next thing you would ask yourself is how many rows and columns does my data set have? It is very good to know. Now we can see a lot of columns, a lot of rows. How many rows? You don't need to count, but there is a way to um, actually see the number of rows. But before that, if you want to, we've seen how we can see the first few rows, say the first n rows, the first 10, 15, 5, 2, whatever number of rows of the data sets. How do we see the last rows? Sometimes you want to do inspection, not only the first ones. You want to see how the last observations to look like. So if you want to see the last observations, which now I am very confident everybody knows what observations are. The same way we did, you call the variable in which the data set was this thing, but instead of saying head for the first few, the first observations, we say tail for the last observations. Head and tail. It makes sense. Your tail, so your ending. So that one too, the same thing. If you don't specify any number, the default is 5. But if you specify a number, then it will show that number you specify. Yeah. And you can see this one, 7,969, 7,970 up to 7,973. So we can see the last observation is 7,973. Now let's come to, what if I want to see um, the shape of the data set, meaning when we say the shape of the data set, what we mean is that the number of rows and columns, the number of rows and columns the data sets have. So if you want to do that, it is very simple. You do data.shape. That one, you don't add any parentheses. And very soon I will show you the difference between the one we add parentheses with and then the one we don't add parentheses. What is the difference? I will show you very soon. Now you will see we have two numbers. One is 7,974, one is 11. Now, whenever you use the data.shape, the first number is the number of rows, in other words, the number of observations or the number of records. The second number, it is the number of columns. Again, the first number, maybe let me put it here as a comment. That's the first number. Come on. Is the, I don't know, when you are very, is the number of rows and the last, the number of columns. So we know that we have 5,000, I mean, almost 8,000 number of rows, and we have 11 columns. Or, in other words, we have almost 8,000 observations and 11 features. Now, let me explain the data set to you. Maybe you are wondering what kind of data set is this? This data set is actually was collected by some data science or data professionals. They kind of collected a lot of job titles, some of the career options you can have in the world of data, and their salaries and the salary currency. Maybe I was working in maybe Ghana, so my salary will be in Ghana cedis, and then the conversion of that in USD, that is in US dollars, and then the employee residence, where the employee is staying, and then the remote ratio. So more like how many percent on a scale of 0 to 100%, how many days can you work from home? So when we say remote in data science or in computer, it means working from home outside the office. So some people, if you see 100% or 100, it means that it is fully remote job. The person doesn't go to the office. But if you see 50, meaning that he goes 50% of the time to the office, or 50% of the days in the week in the office, 50% of, if you see 10%, meaning 10% of the days off, and then the rest at the office. So something like that. Then you see the company location, where the company is located, and then the company size, whether it is small, medium, or large, or whatever. We will see very soon. And you can see the employment type. You will see FT means full time, CT means contract, and all those things. You can see the experience level, whether it is a beginner job, it is an entry level job, mid level, or whether it is what do you call it, whether it is senior level role, something like that. So that is what the data set is. And the reason why we are first exploring this data set is that we are not only going to learn, but we are not only going to learn data science, but we are also going to learn some of the career options we can actually have when we go or when we finish this course. So you can ask yourself, it is not compulsory you become a data scientist, but by the end of this session or by the time we finish exploring these data sets, you would get a fair idea of some of the career options you can actually have outside data science. Most of us just know data science or data analysis or business analysis, but there are a lot of them there. We will see through this. And the work here is like the year they actually took the data set. So whether you were working in 2020 or 2021 or something like that. So as simple as that. And I know you are more like interested in exploring this data set with me. So now we've seen the data set, we've seen how we can get the first few rows of the data set, the last few rows, we can see how we can look at the shape. So the shape of the data set, and we can see how we can actually yeah, we've I've also understood the data set. Now let's see how we can see the structure of the data set. So not just we know that the data set has almost 8,000 rows, observations, and 11 columns of variables. Now, what are the data types of each column? Are they numbers? Are they words? Are they variables? Are they floats? Sorry, are they non-numeric or numeric or categorical or whatever? So, if you want to see the structure of the data set, so which when we say structure of something, how it is structured or how it looks like. So the structure of the data set, if you want to see that, then you actually do data.info. So data.info, and when you run it, meaning give me information about a data set. Now it will show you some these things. They look very weird, but they are very easy to understand. Don't shake or don't panic the first time you open it. Let's take it. The first thing you see here is the class. So what type of object it is, what type of thing is it? You will see that it says that it is pandas.core. So it is pay attention to the last thing, which is data frame. So it is telling you it is a data frame. And I told you a data frame simply means a data set organized or a structured data set which have rows and columns, like we can see here, rows and then columns, like these guys. So whenever you have this, then we say we have a data frame in data science or in Python. Now, from there you see range index. Range index actually kind of talk about the range. So we know that we have 7,974 rows or entries or records or observations. But it ranges from 0 to 7,973, which makes sense because Python is zero index programming language. It starts counting from 0. So the first observation is giving the position 0. That is why you can see the last observation here is not actually 7,974, but minus 1 because it started counting from 0. So keep that in your head. And when you come here, you will see data columns. Then it tells you total 11 columns. So it is telling you the total number of columns, in other words, variables, in other words, features of the data set. So when you come to, then it breaks down every column. So it tells you the column name and it kind of, so number one, which is index 0, is actually work here. Now when you come here, you can see non-null. Non-null simply means the number of entries it has. Sometimes you have a data set, although the shape of the data set is actually, it is said that it has 7,974 um, observations or rules. But sometimes, for example, the work here, not all the data sets would be um, recorded or would be present. Some of them will be missing. So if it is missing, for example, let's say two observations or two of the data sets or records are missing in the work here, for example, you will see that the number here will not be the same as the number of rows when you did the shape, the dot shape. So you have to keep that one in mind. When the number of rows is the same as the number here, then it means that there is no missing value in there. So you can see it is so for all of them, telling us that there is no data loss in our data sets. All of them are intact, everything is intact, and everything is working all right. Now, and pardon me, my background will be a little bit noisy because it is raining heavily here right now, but we still have to move. Now, the next thing is D type. D type means data type. And you remember we learned data types. We talked about non-numeric and numeric. And we said that non-numeric, we call them strings. And we said that with the numeric, we have whole numbers, which are integers or ints, and we have the floats, which are the decimals. Now, we also talked about lists and all those things. So, here the data type is telling you what kind of data is present in that particular column. So, the column is back here. So, we expect a year 2020, 1954, 2000, which is a number and a whole number. So we expect the data type here to be what? Int. Now forget about the 64. It is a way of saving information in Python. So it is int 64 telling you that it is an integer, which is very perfect. Sometimes you may come and it is something like float. So you will see instead of 2020, you see 2020.0, which doesn't make sense in a way because we cannot have 2020.1 as a year. The year should be a whole number. So when such a thing happens, probably you have to change the data type from float to the right way. So what the .info does or provides to you is that it will give you the chance to look at all the variables and see whether there are missing values in there, and also what are their data types. So you expect that experience level, it is what objects. Now here, object simply means it is a string, either words or sentences, meaning it is non-numeric, so it is objects. Now it makes sense because when you come here, experience level, you can see we have SEMIEN and all those things. So it makes sense that it is objects. So we can also do same for the rest. If you realize a particular column, for example, age, and the data type is say object, then you know that that is not the right way. The age is not seen as a number, but in that case, it is seen as what words or non-numeric. So you have to change the data type to the right one, which is um, either int or float or whatever it is. So the .info gives a structure summary of the data set, and it can help you do what we call inspection, data validation. You validate the data set to see what is or what every column entails, the pros and cons and everything of every column, and you are good to go. So you can inspect the rest, and you are very good to go, just like that. So I hope you guys are enjoying the class. Josephine, is it going well? Jabri, how is it going? Josephine, can you hear from me? Is it going well?
Yeah, so far so good. It's going well.
Okay, that's very fine. So, Jabri, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So, like I was saying, it's raining, so sorry, pardon me if the background is quite noisy. So now, back to business. We've seen a lot about data sets. At least you are confident when you are given a data, you would see some stuff about it, which is very, very good. The next thing is, let's look at, we have the variables, we have the columns. I mean the variables, I mean the columns. We've seen a lot of information about them. Now let's explore them. How do you pick or look at only one column or only a specific column of the data set? Now if you do data.head, data.tail, you see that it gives kind of like it gives it gives you all the columns, but maybe you want just a particular column. how do you select that? So let's look at how you can actually select a particular column, or take a look at a particular column, a look at a particular column. So to do that, you first do call the data set name, or the variable in which you save the data set. Then you open and close parentheses. Then um, you give what do you call it? Either single or double quotes in the square, not parentheses, but square brackets rather, or the square parentheses. Then you give either double or single quotes. All of them work very fine. So either double or single quotes, it works very fine. Then you the provide the particular particular column name that you want to include. So, for example, if you want to include or the one you want to inspect, or the one you want to do, let's say we want work here. So you just give work here the same way as it is spelled. So work here, and then we can see it. So if I want to see the first few rows, let's say the first 5 rows, I can do dot head, and then when I run, I'll see the first 5 rows of only that one, which is very good. You can do it for the rest. You can also do for tail, dot tail. So you will see the last of it. You can also do for to check the shape of it. So the shape, and mind you, shape doesn't have what do you call it, the parenthesis at the end, because it is called attributes. In Python, we have things called attributes, and others are also called methods. So methods are the ones we end with parentheses, and then the attributes we don't end with parentheses in this case. So you can see how to explore the entire data set, and how to also explore a particular column. Now, what if you don't want just one column, but let's say more than one column, let's say 2 or 3 columns. So let's look at how we can select more than one column. So if it is more than one, the same way the data set name, and then you open and close your parentheses, but you would supply the column names in a form of a list. And you know that for a list, if you want to create a list, how do you create a list? You create a list by actually square brackets, and you provide the variables or the elements when they are non-numeric in you provide them in quote, whether single or double. So here I'm saying that I want to work here and the salary columns. And let's see, coming. My cat is chewing my cable. She is smart. Hey, my cat is just weird. She's mad. So when you run, you see we have the 2 variables, and you can also do everything we did to the actual data set to it. Like for example, see maybe the first 2 rows observations, and we can also see the last 2 rows, that is the tail, and we can also see the shape of that. So shape, and mind you, shape doesn't have this, so you have to delete it. And you can do even the info to see the info of it. So everything works very well, and you can see them. So you can do whatever you can do to the entire data set. You can actually select a column or a list of columns, and you do to them. As simple as that. So I don't know whether any of you has a question as at this point. Do you have a question? Jabu, any question? Rashad, any question? Um, Josephine, any question? Okay, you don't have any question, right?
I couldn't, I couldn't get a last part. Yeah, my network. I think I was having this network issue. I just got disconnected and then got back, online. So I couldn't get the last part you just did.
Okay, that is very fine. I'll go back to it. Vesta, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any question.
That's very fine. Thank you very much. Makafu, you have any question?
Please no.
Okay, that's very fine. So let's then go and then um, address what Rashad was saying. Rashad, so what I'm saying is, you see, you can explore the entire data set. You can actually also pick a particular column by calling the data set's name and then ending it with square brackets and put the particular column name. For example, in this case, we want to explore the work here column. So we put the column name into the brackets in quotes, whether single or double quotes. Once you do that, you can actually um, exploit. So when you exploit, you can see you have it here. Only that one instead of the entire columns of the data set. Now you can also do whatever we did to the actual data sets to it. For example, you don't want to see all of them, but you want to see the first 10 observations or rows of this particular column. Then you can do that. If you want to see the last 10, you can do. If you want to see the maybe if you want to see the shape of it, you can do just like whatever we did to the actual data set. You can do same to this one. And then you can also, so whatever we did can also be applied here, which is very okay. So that was what I was saying. I'm saying that it is not only one column you can or feature or variable you can take at a time. But if you want to take more than one, you go by the same approach. But here you supply the column names or the variable names in a list. So you have this. So this is what you do if it was one. So we just have this. Um, let me. So you have this. So if I take this out, you have this. If it was just one column, you would have just given this thing and you type the column name. But since it is more than one, you have to supply them in a form of a list. So you give another square bracket and you supply them. For example, work here and then the next one, separate it by a comma, just like a list, whatever you do to a list. And then the next one, let's say salaries or salary. So salaries, and then we can actually, and you know why we getting error? We getting error because it is actually salary and not salaries. So if you misspell it, you're going to get an error. So you can also do, if it was three, for example, you want to see the job title as well. So the job title as well. Then we can add that one to either single or double quote. So job underscore title, just like it is spelled there, and you can have it. So you can have it. So you can have it like this. And what I'm saying is, when you have it like this, you can actually do whatever we did to the actual data set. For example, you can have a look at the first few rows. Um, you can also have a look at the last few rows, and you can look at the shape. You can also do any other thing with it. And mind you, with a shape, it is an attribute, so you don't have to end it with parentheses, just like that. So this is what we've been able to learn up to this far. So actually, we didn't lose much. Now let's see. We've known how to explore the actual data. I mean the columns, how to get a particular column, and all those that. Now let's see how we can actually, for example, if I can select only the work year, for example, data dot so underscore maybe work year. So I need the work year and I'll have it. Then I can actually do a lot of things to it. For example, if I want to analyze this particular column or variable, then I can actually, I mean, analyze it. And the first analysis you can do is something like maybe plotting it or something like doing a lot of things. So we can actually do dot describe. So if you call it a new dot describe and end with so dot describe, it is a method. So you end with open and close parentheses and you run. What this is going to do is that it is going to actually give you the statistics around that particular column. For example, what is the number of variables? So the count, if you count the variables in the number of rows, how many number of rows is in that particular column? Now the mean talks about what is the mean here. So the mean here is around 2022.7, which is 2023. To run it to the nearest numbers, and it's the standard deviation is 0.25. The minimum age or the least age is 2020, and then the median, which is the 50th percentile, is 2023. The current or the latest is up to 2023. So we can see that the data set spans from what the 2023 or 2020 to 2023, 3 years interval. So we are not going to delve deep into this today. I because most of you are new to these things. I don't know if I should end here and let you guys really get your hands dirty on this, or you think I should add more. Josephine, what do you think?
I cannot speak for everybody, but
I'm not,
but
I'm not, I'm not
see,
getting you, Josephine.
data,
Yeah,
when you are doing the examples there, I see that you share the or you take some of the examples you give for other examples and all of them and make it on the next I think it's about like the next example each
I
one.
don't know. It's like your
I don't
network
know if
is
I'm
not good
making
at all,
sense.
so I cannot hear from you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
When I see in your example, if you want
Yeah,
to give a similar example, you shouldn't say what you have done earlier. You can engage the next. I see sometimes you and then at the same spot, and I get confused. For instance, if you want to show maybe the year, and then if anywhere,
yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
okay, for instance, if you want to see the let's say the head or the tail of the data set, then you give that example. You type it in there online, and I see you telling us to type a different example, like if you want to see the first 20 um 20 columns or 20 rows. I don't know if you're getting me. You don't leave the example there and move to the next row to give another example. You clearly can put a different example there. I
So
put
I
them.
I don't know whether I'm getting you. It's like you are saying I shouldn't use the same variable for all the examples or what?
No. I'm not saying don't use the same example. For instance, when you wanted to display the head of the data set,
Yeah.
the first keyword, yes. When you put in that example, when you run that one, you cleaned it.
Ah,
You cleaned
okay.
it.
So
Yes,
I
you
shouldn't
cleaned
be
it, and
doing it.
in that, yes,
Okay.
don't clean it. Leave it and go to the next step and show a different thing. Like if you,
Okay.
for instance, after running how to check this. the head of a data set, and you the next example that you want to show us that has to do running maybe the first 20 or first 100 data sets. Don't clean the first one. Leave the first one there. Go to the second line and do the next example. I don't know if I'm making sense. You
Yeah,
understand what I mean?
I think it makes sense. I get you now. Yeah, thank you for raising the
You
concern.
keep cleaning. Please don't clean it, right? So that when you're practicing, you know after cleaning it, then there's no trace of it again.
Okay, I think it makes sense. So, for example, what she means is that, um, for example, if I come here, maybe let me add a code here, so I can copy this, or let me rather bring it down. So when I bring it down, so I can copy this guy and then paste it here, and let me clean this guy. So instead of, maybe we can do dot head here, right? And then we can do just, and that's it, right? So we can do, yeah, maybe dots. So let me clean one of them. We can do dot tail as well. So what she's saying that,
Exactly my point. Exactly my point. So I realize that we don't at one point keep cleaning it. In our time of practice, we're not excited to clean.
yeah, it makes sense. And sorry for that. And thank you for prompting me. Right. So back to what I'm saying. So let me just add few things and we are good to go. So we can actually explore. We've seen how we can explore the entire data sets, just a column, and then also a collection, like more than one column. So which is a very good thing. Now, if you can explore one column and, or let's say a particular column and all those things, then you can actually pre-process that, or you can actually analyze that to understand it further. And a typical example, let me see, analyze one column, or analyze a particular column. Let me put it, column. So in this case, in this our case is work here. So here we want to find the statistics. We want to find the statistics of the variable, and I know you know what variable is. The variable is the column. So if you want to find the statistics, for example, what is the mean of that particular um, column or that particular variable, then and what is the standard deviation, the maximum in there and the minimum in there, then you call the particular variable, in this our case data in square brackets, work here, which is in quotes because it is not a number, and you do dot describe. So dot describe is a method, so it ends with open and close parentheses. And what is it is going to do is that it is going to describe the data set to you. How many observations? I mean, how many rows? So we have 7974, just as the entire data set, just as we know before. Then we have the standard, the mean. That is the mean or the average year. In this case, it is year, it is work year. So the average year is 2020.7. So since it is year, you have to round it to whole number. So if you round this to a whole number, it will be 2023. So it is 2023. And then the standard deviation is actually 0.56, which we would explain what this means in our subsequent lectures. But now I am trying to give you ways to understand, or ways to, you know, how we go about ways to explore a data set from, I mean, as a beginner. Now the mean talks about the minimum. So the minimum year is 2020, and then the max talks about the maximum year, which is 2023. So it is telling us that you can see that if the minimum is 2020 and the maximum is 2023, then in your analysis you can infer as an analyst that okay, then it means the data set was collected within the interval of 2020 and 2023, or it spans across 2020 and 2023. Now when you see the 50th percentile. 50th percentile means that if you cut the data set into two, which one will be in the middle, which is the same as the median. So the median is 2023. So we would soon explore and understand what these metrics mean, but it is good we know, or we know how, we get some of these things, or how we actually explore some of these things. The same way we can also visualize, for example, visualize some of these things. So let's visualize a particular column, in brackets variable. So I'm going to use the same this thing. So I'm going to use the same variable, that is the work year. You can see it is years. So we want to visualize one of the, when you have years in your data set, one of the ways to actually visualize it is to use what we call histogram. Histogram actually shows the distribution of a data set, or the distribution of a particular variable. So to do, or to plot a histogram in Python, one of the ways is to do, when you call a particular column or variable, you do dot hist, short form of histogram. Then you end it with open and close parentheses. Now when we run, we should see um, a very nice this thing. And we can see it is not really nice because it is here, so it is discrete. Now let's say we want to see, instead of plotting this thing, we want to see how many 2020 are in, or how many of the data sets were recorded in 2020, how many of the jobs were recorded in 2021, 2022, or how many of the jobs were recorded sorry, in each year. Now to do that, you do, sorry, or let me do the plot or the hist and leave it. I'm following Josephine's advice. So we can also see how many of each value in the data set, or in the particular column, or how many years, how many distinct years are in the data set. So how many distinct or unique, let me use the word unique, values are in the column, in other words variable. What we mean by that is, for example, when you pick work year, we want to see like how many years, unique years, are are in the data set, were recorded in the data set. So we have maybe 2020 is one, 2020, 2022, and all those things. So how many of them? So to do that, you just do data, then let me admit Rashad. Rashad, today you are joining and going, joining and going. I don't know. So I've admitted Rashad. Let me go back to the listing. So we want to see the number of years, the number of unique years in each year. So to do that, you do dot n unique. That is the number of years. N unique. And you open and close with parentheses. Now when you run, it tells you, gives you, sorry, it's supposed to be n unique, n unique, n unique. And when you run, you get 4, telling you that there are 4 unique years. So we got to realize that 2020 is a minimum year, and 2023 is a maximum year. So meaning that we started recording from 2020 and it ended at 2023. So if you count, we have 2020, which is 1, 2021, which is 2, 2022, 3, 2023 is 4. So we have 4 unique years in the data set. This can be very useful. For example, when you have a feature like gender, then you will know how many gender groups do we have. Maybe we have male and female, or in this current world where we have more than two genders, you would know whether you have more than two or just two. Now, let's say now we know that we have four unique values or unique years in the year. Now, how do we, or what are those? What are those? What are those? I mean, unique years we have. So, what are the unique years? We know that there are four, but what are they? What are they? Then we do data, the same thing, but dot. Instead of n unique, we remove the n and just do unique. So when you do that, it's going to give you the years in a form of a list. So you can see 2023, 2020, 2022, and 2021. These are the four unique years we have in the variable. Very simple, very interesting. And we can do same for all the other variables. So I leave that to you. I want you to do for for the, for example, job title. So how many job titles do we have? And the last thing I'm going to do is, now we know that we have four unique values or four unique years, and they are 2020, 2021, 22, and 23. Now we want to know how many of the jobs were for 2020, how many of them were for 2023, how many of them were for each year. For example, the same way if you have gender, you want to know how many of the people are male, how many of them are female, how many of them are whatever gender classes you have. Now to see that how many of each year, how many values of each year, I mean of each unique year is in the variable. In other words, column. So to do that the same way, data work, so work here, then you do dot, so you do dot value underscore counts. So value counts, you know, you want to count the number of values for each. Open and close with parentheses. Now when you run, it will arrange it. So we can see in all, the 2023 had the highest number of observations. So we have 6,031 of the jobs we have were recorded in 2023, 1,650 were in 2022. In 2021, we had 218 jobs, and we have 75 for 2020, which is interesting to know, right? So these are some of the things you can do. There is a lot more you can do, honestly, and I will leave that to you. We've talked for so much time, and my laptop is dying out. I would like to pause here, and I would I would encourage all of us with where we've reached so far. If you don't practice and you leave it and you wait for the next year or the next meeting before you revise, you would always, lag behind. So whenever you have free time, revise, practice, watch the video, ask me questions, come to my DM, ask the questions. You can ask Nanamwa. Nanamwa is always available in a group to help, and you can practice the tutorial sheets and all those things so that you would always have them in your head. You will not be wondering. It is normal if you run into errors. For the start of everything, it is very difficult. And after you've gone through what you've done, try to apply them to the rest of the variables. For example, you pick job title instead of work here, you pick job title and you are good to go. Or maybe you pick company size or you pick company location, pick the other ones and explore them and let's see. That way you'll be confident and you'll be able to do your things the way you are expected to do. So that is my motivation or my word of advice for all of us. No one is born a programmer, no one is born special. Everybody learns and everybody practices. And that is how you become a champion. Always remember, it takes a little more to be a champion. That is what I really, really believe in. So at this point, I want to pause here and take your questions if there is any. Um, wow. Jabril, do you have a question? Jabril, do you have any question? If there is no question, you can. Okay, Jabril is gone. Josephine, do you have any question? Okay, you don't have any question, right? That's fine. I'm glad you don't. I know Makafu is in a bus coming back. So, by Makafu, do you have any question?
Please, no, not for now.
That's very fine. Martin, do you have any question? How are you? I didn't even see you, Charlie. I was quiet.
I'm fine.
No question, right?
Question.
Yeah,
I have
you
no
said
question.
okay. I have no question, right?
I said I have no question.
Is that what?
I said I have no question. No question.
Okay, that's fine. So I would like us to end here, and we continue tomorrow. So we're going to explore the same data set, take it from where we ended, and we are going to build on that. Please revise. Please revise before you join. So that it will not going to be a new thing to you. That is my humble plea with all of you. Please revise. Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to share the storage sheet right in the um, group, and I'm also going to upload the video. I'll see you soon. Thank you for joining. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.